And now it's my pleasure to introduce our speaker for today. Focused on cultivating strategic relationships for Dotin, Ashish has spent the last 10 years in business stakeholder roles supporting SaaS, AI, B2B ventures. Passionate about supporting the convergence of technology and the human element, Ashish aligns with Dotin Incorporated's vision. Dotin's award winning and innovative work in AI software has garnered international attention. Recognized for its real time ability to leverage cognitive insights in the workplace and across markets, Dotin is making a tangible impact on the new enterprise talent lifecycle. Thank you, Ashish. Lovely to have you on board, and now I pass it on to you.
Thank you so much, and pleasure to be here. Hello, everybody. And as I just start my screen share here, very excited to be here at the event. Dotin has been a partner of Ceipal here for about 2 years or so. And, you know, this partnership to us is very critical. We have a wonderful relationship and a merging of technologies. And as Ceipal and Dotin together is a perfect combination with technology and orchestration. I'd love to take the next few moments here and give you guys a overview in terms of exactly how this works. But to start off here, I'd like to just maybe go into a little bit about this story, a little bit about the background in terms of Dotin, and the company's been around since 2014. And the first few years were kind of building the core IP needed in terms of entering this realm of human personality that we entered, a very daunting task. And in those first years, the initial studies, base modeling, combination of machine learning, data science with neuroscience and psychology together created these machine learning models, which were then, through experimental process, leveraging the scientific method, using a very broad and diverse group of subjects in those tests. We represented about 20,000 or so initial participants, equal distribution of male and female, 46 countries, many languages represented to ensure that we had the most bias-free modeling. And that's one key point. Dotin, it's very important for us to have the most ethical AI applications to understand people in the most complete manner. From that journey start point in 2014, the product is developed and today serves several key use cases and key core functionalities. And what we've really wanted to do from the onset is understand some of those aspects of core personality elements. And the problem of predicting personality has been around for many years. There's many systems out there that have been used. Typical question and answer assessment models, and that goes further into some deterministic behavioral models that have been used. And fundamentally, there was a problem where we found that there's conscious bias that's in many of those initial processes. What Dotin did is develop IP around understanding clear signals that are driven by personality, and some of our IP fits around understanding things like color and pattern as that kind of converges to personality, and also some of the aspects of how individuals are consuming information. What we've developed that into is a product line that has sourcing, screening, upskilling, and engagement solutions through that understanding of those core cognitive attributes. And we've built a pretty robust platform serving enterprise from that standpoint. However, today I'd like to really focus on our aspects of sourcing and how our B2B SaaS talent analytics platform really helps organizations across these critical needs, especially today. And what's very important to understand is the global talent pool itself is a group of not just active candidates, but passive candidates too. And passive candidates are actually a critical component. If you think about it, 70% of the global workforce is made up of passive candidates. And these folks, though they may not be actively seeking a job, they're still 15% of them, for example, are reaching out to their network. 87% of this group, as we'll dive in a bit deeper, is actually open to speaking to a recruiter or maybe exploring a new possibility. And some of the best talent and most accessible talent is in that category, though it's a daunting task as it's a very vast candidate pool. And to think about why it matters to bring AI-powered sourcing solutions into this equation is really that equation of scale. But by being able to do two things: one, add efficiency with a database that is vast, and actually we give access to 480 million passive candidate profiles. The cost of acquisition is significantly less when we compare to typical price of resume, say, for example, from a typical job board. But by bringing focus and allowing us to bring a more holistic view in terms of finding that fit, that right candidate for the role, and doing so at scale, there's an increase in accuracy, which drives a better throughput, i.e. better alignment, core motivation of individuals aligned to a core outcome, which drives retention. And ultimately, what we found as well is that if you can make those right kind of predictive choices early on in the process, that the end result is better overall success, looking at a holistic picture beyond just hard skills, for example. And that increase in productivity of 2.5x was something we case studied through one of our partners, and learned that this is the other intangible here, that you can actually start to increase not just efficiency and bottom line, but top line as well. And if you've considered passive candidates, I'm sure there's different strategies that have been used in terms of marketing and reaching out to folks. And the key point here is, for me anyways, is that if you look at this subset, 45% of them are basically at some level open to speaking to a recruiter. And this is all sourced from a study done by LinkedIn through their talent solutions, group. And that is a survey that they did, with many candidates. With that said, only 15% of this group, this 70% pool, is really locked into their role in terms of wouldn't move. So activating the demand, targeting and focusing at getting the right conversations at the right time creates a very powerful strategy if done right. When we look at the active candidate pool, this is 15% of the global workforce. It's obviously a smaller pool of talent. You may not have the best quality talent. Some of the best talent is employed in terms of very specific and high skill type talent as well. And you would be competing with others to get that original placement. You would be competing with other companies, both from other recruiters and direct options as well. So what you get out of this equation is competitive and higher source cost. And generally speaking, the other problem that comes in is when, and this actually is a problem that the virtual world kind of amplifies, is that generally people embellish their resumes a bit, right? There's this bit of projection that comes into play. And this is something really important to consider. When we look at projection, what we're seeing is an individual who's crafting a CV or working on different assets and presentation to show their best foot forward. But what our organization is looking for is that authentic persona. So on paper, you have talent who you feel is going to change the world. But in reality, there's a misconnection, a misfit, if you will. And this fundamental problem is one that Dotin, we've tried to solve on many levels, from our screening products all the way through. And to understand the cost to business here, before COVID, we put a stat together, which is using data that was put out by the Society of Human Resource Management, SHRM, $31 billion loss to business. And if you analyze why this disconnect happens, it's because at times we're not looking, or we're not able to look for things that are beyond, say, skills and experience. Skills and experiences are very important in terms of you need to be qualified to do the job, but looking beyond at the core motivation and values of individuals really becomes critical. When we look at the world today, looking at resilience becomes very important, for example, in a workforce. Business's resilience is really the sum total of the resilience of individuals, and asking questions like, can they work virtually? How do they deal with stress? Do they have empathy in these times? Is really critical. And what Dotin has done with our integration in Ceipal and our ability to come together here and balance this equation, bringing the insights around the core motivation and values of an individual and their skills and experience into the sourcing equation is the power. And doing so passively gives access to that massive global talent pool. Most importantly, the system is designed to be ethical. Ethical AI is one of our core principles. Our system doesn't look at gender, race, ethnicity, facial expressions, any of those points that could bring bias into machine learning models. Rather, we're looking at clear signals that are based on certain attributes around an individual's choice of words, style of writing, and things along those lines. So when you look at AI-powered passive candidate sourcing, it is a clear competitive edge, no doubt. You're able to tap into this candidate pool, 70% of the global workforce. You're able to identify clear signals in terms of the values, the cognitive insights, cultural alignment, and even things like, if an individual's fit for a remote position, for example. And the most important is you can do so, at 1/10 the acquisition cost. And this is an incredible trifecta, if you bring it together, that adds value, alignment, and at the end of the day, delights end customers. But it's also important to understand that this is an industry where compliance is critical. And what we've done is we've made sure that our IP fits within a model that is industry standard. So Dotin, by understanding and analyzing resumes or profiles through choice of words, our ability to understand those unique components in the resume is unique and patented. But what we're doing is now taking those insights and aligning them to certain industry standards. For example, our taxonomy, if you will, of jobs, our alignment to every role is based on ONET, which is a database put out by the United States Department of Labor, and has pretty much every job, from CEO on down, and shows a holistic profile in terms of technical skills, even some of the soft skills that are needed. And the reason this is important is because we want to align to some level of true north. So for example, if we analyze a job title and description, we want to make sure that that's aligned to an industry framework. In the same way, as we start to understand people, looking at things like their learning style, we leverage Gartner's theory of multiple intelligences. And this theory has been taught in education and allows educators or teachers or learners to kind of connect better by understanding things like how they consume information, what types of content recommendations might be given. So this is one way we understand an individual beyond, let's just say, the hard skills on a resume. We take this further and we look at their workplace personality. Again, there's a model called Holland's Occupational Insight Model, which has been used in industries like, for students, for example, in career counseling. They'll take an assessment to understand where their strengths are. For example, if somebody might be investigative, they're a thinker, there are certain roles they align well to. So this workplace personality becomes critical to uncover. So by using existing modeling, but then taking our ability to apply our AI and get these clean insights, we're able to predict things that are that are a bit intangible, like cultural alignment and technical alignment. And this becomes important because these outcomes then are able to go into the workflow. So the way that our passive candidate strategy and workflow is orchestrated, and this is something that's inbuilt into the Ceipal platform, it starts with a job title and description. Now, by analyzing that job title and description, what our system does is understands the components within that job title and description that yield insights into their technical skills needed for success, into some of the qualities around values, into some of the interpersonal qualities. And by having this ability to align to that ONET standard that I just mentioned, we're able to build very powerful ideal models out of the box in real time. Now, that model creates a very deep set of data that we can use to help find and predict the best candidates. So by projecting that into our database of 480 million passive candidates, so worldwide database at 480 million, and ensuring that we are only looking for compliant data, that's GDPR compliant data in terms of publicly available profiles, and ensuring that we are also in compliance with even more stringent requirements with CCPA, California's Consumer Protection Act, and even FERPA, which is a standard used for building solutions or doing business with educational entities, which we've worked with some of the UC systems. The point being is this compliant database is vast, and AI allows us to really focus, and it's now down to about 5 minutes, we come back with an overall score, prioritized list that's based on cultural alignment, technical alignment, and we can look at interesting filters. We can identify if individuals have the ability to work from home, as we're able to understand values and how those values relate to things like resilience. We can also look at deeper cues in terms of how to engage and work with this talent. And I just wanted to give you a quick example of some of the outcomes that we give in terms of our ability to look at, first of all, an individual and build a resume that's a more humanized version of a resume. In this example, we see that there is a standard experience list. Brian here has, certain experience, education. We can also see some of the top technical skills, of course, contact information. So that would be standard compared to other, resume formats. But what we also can do is identify some soft skills. Some of these unique soft skills are, the aspects that can help lead to success beyond just alignment on, say, a skills or technical level. Now, of course, it's a very technical position here, but there are still some interesting soft skills that come into play. And we also, because we can understand an individual a bit deeper, understanding their core motivation, values, and these cues help us identify what would be the right training curriculum that we might recommend. We would also say what kind of compensation and benefits plans would actually fit to maybe motivate or attract this talent. We can also identify some of the key values that this individual brings. And this is all done in a passive context. We have yet to meet this individual and we're still, maybe pre-targeting. We can also give tangible recommendations, how we can engage deeper. So this is value that's given, beyond just the aspects of a hard resume. We can also take a deeper look where we can understand their cultural attributes. So here in this example, we can see the individual's top working styles are artistic, enterprising, realistic. So imagine having these insights in the first level conversation, passing this value on to end customers, and all delivered in platform as outcomes for every one of the search returns. So let's go back into the presentation here. Perfect. So as we dive deeper into these insights, the culmination of where Dotin has kind of been able to garner some key exposure in the marketplace. We've been able to work through some amazing accelerators and programs, including Columbia University's Capstone program, to help build our IP and go deeper in the research. We've been able to work with organizations like Salesforce in their work.com initiative, which is an initiative in place right now to help organizations transition back. We've been very lucky to come out of some of these programs to help build a very scalable company as well. Some of the verticals that we're able to serve, and there's several others, but the strong verticals here include recruiting agencies, financial services, and hospitality. And we really have a perfect partnership with Ceipal here in terms of being able to bring together our insights from the cognitive side using our AI to understand people combined with the orchestration and power at scale. So this is definitely a great partnership. If you have any questions, please reach out to your Ceipal sales executive. And I think I could pause here for questions.
Thank you, Ashish, for an excellent presentation and your insights on passive candidate sourcing. And now we begin with the Q&A. So we have one of the question, Ashish, which says that would love to understand the costs involved in recruiting passively looking candidates.
So from a cost perspective, I would defer to the deeper commercial conversation in terms of packaging, to the Ceipal sales executive team. But to understand the cost from an ROI perspective, the passive candidates are typically procured at 1/10 the cost as your typical active candidate. So thinking about a job board, for example, would be a good example.
Yeah, also they say that though you get richer pool of candidates with passive candidates, how much time does it take to get them through the process?
So that's a great question. Now, of course, in that passive group, there's a variety of different types of candidates. One of the things that we try to do is using our AI and intelligence on the back end for optimization, we'll try to look for intent signals, where if somebody's updated their profile, we want to catch them right as they're transitioning into that passive active. Of course, once they become active, they're available on the job board. So that competitive edge is something that we've tried to engineer. Typically speaking, what happens is if you can orchestrate or reach out at scale, you'll see 20 to 30% or so of responses from these candidates. Now, it depends on the industry, of course. The verticals in some cases are a bit more competitive, but that ability to reach out at scale and also add some intent data is something that we're able to do together with Ceipal.
And what is the percentage of the accuracy of the data?
So in terms of data accuracy, so there's a couple things that we're doing. First of all, when we build a profile, we make sure that we verify. We have an independent verification. We'll typically look back to, for example, LinkedIn profile. We'll try to make sure that that individual is still, current and they're still reachable. In fact, that's one of the channels you can reach out directly through LinkedIn. And we're also double checking in terms of the ability for us to predict and build the models. We're constantly ensuring there's accuracy from the onset. Of course, 100% would be the goal, but that's very hard to get. But accuracy is quite high as we're constantly, refreshing and enriching that data set as well. And the key point also is that we're only going to serve contact information that's been verified and it's GDPR compliant through certain channels that are in place. So ensuring that that's current as well is critical for success.
Okay, great. And the last question, is this integration available now in Ceipal?
Yes, resounding yes on that. It is live and available, and it's something we're quite excited about. And again, if you contact your Ceipal sales exec team, they will be happy to walk you through a bit of a demo. And I believe there's a demo later on as well of the passive candidate functionality here at the event.
Right. I think we are at the end of the session. It was great having you, Ashish, and thank you for making the session interesting and meaningful.